Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Let's Talk show here on UrbanCast. Today, we are addressing a very important issue that directly affects our community, its safety, economy, and its future, the property tax renewal for the Renaissance Home for Youth. This facility has served our community for almost 50 years now in helping to rehabilitate youth offenders, providing them with the second chance to lead productive lives in our community. However, with crime rates at an all-time high, some are questioning the need for this renewal, raising concerns about the impact on property owners and renters alike. Here to help us to understand the importance of this program and the broader implications are Senator Jay Luneau, District Attorney Phillip Terrell, and Sheriff Mark Wood. Thank you for joining us today, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess we can go ahead and just jump right on in here. Sheriff Wood, can you elaborate a little bit about the role of the Renaissance Home for Youth and what it plays in reducing crime and rehabilitating young people here in our community?
Sure, Jackie. And, we're going to try to dispel some mistruths that's out there. And that's why I'm glad our friend Senator Luneau is here. Mm-hmm. He's donated his time out there for 30 years. He's been their legal counsel. Mm-hmm. And so he really knows the workings of it. But based on what we do right here on the safety side of it, juvenile offenders, they cannot be housed with adult offenders. Mm-hmm. So we have to have a place to house our juveniles because according to federal law, they are, you got to provide education. You got to provide psychologists. You got to check drug awareness. There's so much more has to be done for a juvenile that is required. And for 50 years, Renaissance has been doing this. Mm-hmm. And there's two sides of that, and the senator will get more into that. Mm-hmm. You have basically your shelter care side, that's children that maybe be abused, neglected, don't have nowhere to go, that's just kind of unruly at home, that they're in on that side. Then you have the other side that's more of a detention side, mm-hmm. Where you have the people that maybe the juveniles in there for murder, rape, or more serious crimes, and that's where we have to house them. As you know, all across this nation, and our DA will get more into that, is that uptick of that juvenile. It's not the same juveniles that was even dealt with 50 years ago when Renaissance was put into existence. And, it's just more violent. And so that is, it's been around so long. We need some updates in it. We need to beef our security up a little bit more out there. We need the programs are good, maybe look at them and add what we can. Mm-hmm. Look, if we can turn one or two lives around, Jack, you've done what you need to do. And there again, I keep going to the center. He's going to tell you some success stories. And I'm sure you've heard of some. Yesterday, we were on 970 Talk Radio. Mm-hmm. And right when we got off, I get in my truck to leave, and it was a young man called in. And he thanked us and thanked Renaissance. That he said if it had not been for Renaissance, he don't even know if he'd be alive right now. He was on that wrong road going to the wrong place, and that jolt that got him and brought him back to where he needed to be. So yeah, Renaissance is it's we got a lot of people. I know times is rough right now. And we got a lot of mistruths, a lot of half truths. It's not being told right. This is not an increase. Mm-hmm. This is a renewal that's been in place for 50 plus years. Every 10 years it has to be renewed, which it has been. And this is that 10th year where it has to be renewed. And, we just want to get out there with the folks and tell them that election is this Saturday. And, there's not a whole lot on the ballot. I think maybe we got a police jury race. Is it one or two city council races? I can't remember. So it's going, we really need to stress to folks to get out there and support this and help, because Renaissance is a good deal. I don't care what nobody says, it does it. And we need to keep it.
Right. So DA Terrell, how does having this facility help alleviate the strain on our judicial system? And what are the long-term benefits such rehabilitation programs for youth offenders?
Well, Jack, you and I have talked about this many times. The criminal justice system is like the rest of the world. It's an 80-20 or a 90-10 rule. 80% or more of the offenders in the adult penal system and the juvenile system who come into contact with the police or come into contact with the DA's office don't deserve to go to jail. They deserve a second chance, and a lot of times a third chance. But there are a group of people who come into contact with the criminal justice system who are going to continue to come into contact with them, with us, and the police and the prosecutors and the judges and the people with experience who the public trust to be in the positions that we're in know who those people are, the adults and the juveniles, and those offenders are dangerous. And they have to be housed, and they can't be rehabilitated because they're going to hurt somebody. And unfortunately, that's how society is. The Renaissance serves both of those purposes, like the rest of the criminal justice system. And just like the rest of the criminal justice system, yeah, it has to be funded. Rapides Parish is responsible for housing pretrial juvenile offenders, has to be paid for, just like every other parish in the state. So if a juvenile is arrested for a violent crime, Rapides Parish, the police jury, is responsible for paying for housing that child, for educating that child, for providing every other, feeding that child until he is convicted, sent to a juvenile Office of Juvenile Justice, the state juvenile facility, or until whatever service is provided that the judge requires him to do, just like an adult. So it's just more expensive. So if Renaissance closes, then the parish, if the tax does not pass and Renaissance closes, then the parish will have to pay it out as general fund. What will have to happen is the juveniles will have to be shipped to other places, like Alabama or other places where there are juvenile facilities at the parish's expense. It's projected that $300, $350 a day. So the citizens still have to pay for it. This system has been working for 50 years. So what we're asking the citizens to do is to please vote for this tax, renew this tax, the advocate tax that has been in effect for the 50 years. The citizens spoke very clearly when the Renaissance Board asked for an increase in the tax. Mm-hmm. That was obviously ill-advised, and the board should not have done that, in my view. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're asking for. We're asking for the citizens, the voters to vote as they have for the last 50 years with this common sense approach to juvenile justice.
Yeah. Senator Luneau, you see things at a state level across the state, and Rapides Parish has the Renaissance Home for Youth, and some folks say, well, send them to another state facility, or this should be something that the state is responsible for. Why is it really critical that we keep these facilities right here in central Louisiana? And the real interesting thing here is that 50 years ago, we saw a need to have the Renaissance Home 50 years ago, and today crime is much higher than what it was at that time. And so, if you could help us kind of understand that a little bit, I greatly appreciate it, sir.
So the real reason we need to keep those kids in central Louisiana is for the well-being of the kids. Mm-hmm. One of the things that Governor Landry is trying to push is regional facilities where the kids can be housed closer to home. Mm-hmm. So their families can come see them, their ministers can come see them, their friends can come see them. And that's important that they maintain that contact and know that they're not in this alone. So that's one of the critical reasons. Another reason is because of juveniles, they're mandated to make court appearances at certain dates, 30 days or 60 days or 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
If those children are in a facility in Alabama, they have to be transported back to Louisiana for those hearings. And that cost is very, very high, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a number of reasons for that. One of the things that we do at Renaissance, no matter if a child comes into shelter care or to detention, is we do an assessment of that particular child to find out what their needs and wants and desires are, frankly. For example, in the first 24 hours they're there, they go through a physical examination, a mental examination, dental examination, or whatever the circumstance calls for. And that way we know where this child is at. We do know that more than half of the kids that come through Renaissance have psychological problems of some fashion that has to be dealt with. We have the facilities to do that at Renaissance to help these kids. Many of them are on medications and they're off their medications, and a lot of times that's what causes the problem. So we get them back on their medications and get their life more in order the way it should be. Another thing we do is we provide education for the kids at Renaissance. For many years, when Renaissance first opened, those kids were sent to school here in Rapides Parish, and a lot of the kids were disciplinary problems in those schools, and they were suspended from time to time. And transportation was another issue because we had to transport a lot of kids to the other schools. So many years ago, we were fortunate enough to obtain funding, and we built a school on the grounds at Renaissance. And there's actually a school building there where those kids go to school there. We have had numerous kids that obtained their GED or their equivalent high school equivalency diploma, and now have gone on to college. So I mean, that's an incredible thing when you hear those stories about it. We have so many kids that during their time at Renaissance, they spent some time there and they were able to go back out and get their life back on track, so they didn't have to be detained anywhere. They didn't have to be in shelter care. So it's important that we continue to do that, and we do it on the local level where these kids can have involvement from their families. Because when they leave Renaissance, they're going to go back with their families like all kids would do. And so it's important that they maintain those kind of relationships as well. We talked a little bit about some success stories. I'm going to tell you one on more of a personal level. I had a young lady some years ago that worked for me, and she'd been working there for 2 or 3 years. She was a great employee. And I was going to a meeting at Renaissance one day, and she stopped me and talked to me. She said, "You're going to Renaissance?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You know Renaissance?" And she goes, "You bet I know Renaissance. I spent 6 weeks of my life there one time." And I said, "Really?" I was really surprised that she'd been to Renaissance. Mm-hmm. She said, "I was a defiant kid. I didn't want to listen to my parents. I ended up there for 6 weeks, and it completely changed my life." And she went on and she led a normal life. She was a person that was well thought of, and until the day she moved out of this area, worked for me and was a great employee. So there are just hundreds, literally hundreds of success stories like that along the way. Unfortunately, not all of these kids are success stories. Mm-hmm. Some of these kids are very violent, and we know that. We know how difficult that is to deal with children who have that level of violence. Detention is designed, first of all, as a juvenile facility to maintain the safety of the kids, to make sure that they're safe and they're not harmed. And secondly, to maintain the safety of the public, so they're not out there quite frankly, murdering or raping or attempted murder or any of those things. I can remember for the first decade, I probably volunteered at Renaissance. It was pretty much unheard of. I don't think we ever had a murder, anybody accused of murder out there. But now that's often. And without this facility in place, the courts have to make decisions about which violent offenders they incarcerate and which ones they send home.
Yeah, right now, Jack, we're holding 7 juveniles right now that several of them are for murder. So, it's times have changed, and,
right.
It's not a time to run and bail right now. We got to stay with it.
Wow. And this question is for either of you guys. Some residents are arguing that the property tax renewal unfairly burdens property owners. How would you respond to this, and what do you say to the renters who may not realize they are also indirectly contributing to this tax too? So that myth that's sitting out there that's saying it unfairly impacts those only the property owners.
So you're exactly right. A lot of those people are renters, and that cost is passed on to them.
So they are more than just the property owners they're doing that. Let me give you this to kind of let people know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
First thing is, if your property is valued at $75,000 or less, you pay nothing toward this ad valorem tax. You're exempt from all of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a property that's worth $100,000, it's about $5 a year. If you have a home that's worth $200,000, it's about $37 a year. So we're not talking about amounts of money that are so high that we shouldn't be trying to make sure that we take care of these kids properly and that we protect the public properly too.
And you know, another thing that, Jack, that we keep getting asked, and let me tell this, that just a couple of weeks ago, Grant Parish Sheriff called me and they had a juvenile that they was looking for a place to put. It wasn't nothing violent. I think it was some thefts, maybe some internet stuff. I can't remember exactly the whole thing. But anyway, they called about Renaissance. They had put them in there, but Grant Parish pays that bill. Rapides Parish does not pay. If something comes from out of parish, we bill the parish. That parish, they pay for the bill.
If we have room.
If we have room to house that child.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done that for decades at Renaissance. When we have the space available in one of our neighboring parishes in need of it, we allow them to do that, and they pay the cost of that as well. So This is not something new, but to say that we are in Rapides Parish, we're paying the cost for housing out of parish kids is just simply not.
That's not true. And you know, Jay, look, when I think of Central Louisiana, you know, Grant Parish, Balls Parish, LaSalle, they do a lot of business and work in Rapides Parish. Rapides Parish is the hub. Alexandria is the hub. So, you know, that's our neighboring parish. There's a lot of folks that have kin folks over there. And you think if a child does a burglary or does some stuff in Colfax, that he's not going to go to Boyce and continue what he's doing. I mean, we work cases like that. So it's not just like we fenced in and isolated. Central Louisiana is Central Louisiana.
So you know, with some folk not wanting to really fund this program, I would assume, and the police jury being the body that's going to be financially responsible for these kids, you know, I would just think then these services that these these young people are getting out at the Renaissance home now, be it you know, the ones that are there for shelter care, and I would assume the shelter care kids would be kind of like kids who are in foster care or something like that. Okay, and then the other ones, it just seemed to me that, you know, with those costs being so high, we're going to end up releasing these kids back out on the streets ahead of time, and then it's, you know, I mean, y'all help me understand. I'm just trying to paint a picture here.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you a little story, Jack. Probably about, I don't know, it's probably been 3 or 4 months ago before Judge Davison retired from the bench, maybe longer, maybe in 7 or 8 months. You know, I can't remember exact time flies, but he came to me and he said, Mark Lou, we need your help. He said, Renaissance is short-staffed right now. Like every other place, you can't get nobody to work, whether it be a restaurant or even at the sheriff's office. Everybody's short-staffed. He said, look, I'm fixing to have to turn loose 2 or 3 kids that does not need to be on the street. One was in for murder. One was a rape, assault of some kind. And I can't remember the other one. He said, I need some help. And at that point, we had not been working on Renaissance. And I said, well, Judge, we can't do that. We can't put these kids out back in the public under some kind of house arrest. And that's not going to fly. So anyway, we went in, and a lot of my guys work overtime over there now. So that's how we became a little bit more involved in the Renaissance. Okay. So yes, if there's not a place to keep these folks, and a judge is against the wall, and he's going to have to do what, because there's, like I say again, there's federal laws and other laws that require us certain things to be done about juveniles, and your hands are tied. You got to do it or you know, do something else. So that's just one of the stories, you know, I just want to share with you. Yes,
and Jack,
out there.
Jack, Jack, to your point about the taxpayers, the parish has to pay for housing the pretrial juvenile detainees. It's the law. The parish once they're arrested, once a police agency in Rapides Parish arrests a juvenile for a crime, they have to be, they're in the custody of the parent. They're in the custody of the sheriff. If they're arrested for a felony, right? So the sheriff under federal law cannot house them within sight nor sound of an adult prisoner. So he either has to place them in a place like Renaissance, or he has to shut down a wing of his jail so that they're not within sight nor sound of his adult prisoners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that throws the whole thing out of whack because his jail's already full of adult offenders, right? Violent offenders. Make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay, so the taxpayer pays for it one way or the other.
And I guess what we're trying to say is that it's been working, and we want people to know that it has been working. There's stuff out there, people saying, well, I don't hear this, I don't hear that, it's not working. And I get it. I get to deal with taxes. They're look, I have no deductions anymore in my paycheck. I mean, they hit me pretty hard because I haven't. All my children's gone, and I have no deductions. So I get it. But there are some things, Jack, that public safety and just like Phillip said, common sense. I mean, we have to do, to stay safe and live like we want to live.
Jack, let me mention one other thing too about the operations at Renaissance. Renaissance is governed by a board of directors. That board of directors comes from the community. Currently, Rodney McNeil, who's a retired veteran and works out at the VA hospital, is chairman of the board and is doing a fantastic job. We have people that are on the board from just about every company that you can think of in central Louisiana and have been over the years like that. Their budget is carefully monitored. They are audited every year. And in the times that since they started auditing in the state of Louisiana, which was probably 40-something years ago, Renaissance has had one audit finding ever. And it was a simple mistake that it was easily corrected. That's amazing when you think about an annual audit every year by a facility that large, and they've never had an audit finding. That's how well run that facility is. So it's imperative that we keep that facility funded and running the way it has in the past.
Let me ask you another question here. You guys mentioned that there were 7 really violent young juveniles that were at the facility right now, and there's some. I think it was seven right there, Sheriff. Something.
Let me look. I'm looking here. One is out of parish. 6 is.
6 from here, right here in Rapides Parish. So when folk are saying that we are going to, the only thing that this facility is going to be used for is to house violent criminals or violent juvenile offenders from all over the state. Right now you only have one person that's in there that's kind of like a violent offender from someone else. How true? I mean, is that something has that been a practice at the facility?
Well, no, and let me tell you what, Phillip mentioned a while ago the past tax they tried to do. Everybody was kind of, and the place is 50 years old. It needs some work. It needs some updates. So when that was out there, you didn't see myself. I'm going to speak for myself. I was not for it. I'm going to be honest with you. The increase, okay? I'm for the renewal because we need this place. But meanwhile, as you've heard, Governor Landry has talked about these regional facilities, okay? And he's talking about several around the state. And what these regional facilities are about is to keep the juveniles, and you heard the senator say that juvenile in that region, okay? In other words, we're not fixing to get flooded with a bunch of New Orleans kids up here, nothing like that. People keep wanting to say that. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Okay. I'm not saying that there may be one here for a minute. Okay.
Right.
They can get situated. But the regional concept that they're talking about. The juveniles from this region, and our region being about an 8-parish region is what they're talking about, okay? Across central Louisiana. And the other regions will have their own.
7 of them.
Yes, 7 of them. So the others, there'd be 7 regions, and that's in the making. Luckily, Renaissance had the first footprint, okay, because for whatever reason, the foresight and the senator has been very on board helping us with this, is that we had that footprint already made when the application was put out there. So, to get some updates and some stuff at the facility on some one-time money, the governor is involved in this. But we have to run this facility. Other parishes will be paid. Rapides Parish is not going to be footing this bill on their own.
And Jack, so you and your listeners can understand, we've been doing that for decades at Renaissance. I mean, it is not something new. We take kids from the surrounding parishes, the 7 parishes that surround us. If we have bed space available, we do take their kids, and we're available to do that.
Right.
Sometimes when we could not do that, because like Sheriff Wood was talking about earlier, there were times during COVID when we were short-staffed and we were trying to make the best out of what we could, so we couldn't do that. No one's trying to send these kids out of their area. They want them to stay in their area for all the reasons we talked about.
Well, and I think, Senator, we talked yesterday, you mentioned there is times where some of these shelter kids, whatever, at the facility is allowed to go to a church.
They are allowed to go to church, and they're allowed. They get visitation rights. They can go see their family and spend time with their family before they're released to acclimate them back into the community.
So for one, a lot of times we see a lot of negatives coming from our community. But in this scenario, you saying that the concept that we've had going on here in Rapides Parish for the last 50 years, the state's finally catching up with us.
That's exactly right.
Is that what you guys said?
It was kind of like the traffic circles. I don't know if you remember, we used to have the circles, and I used to. Everybody's getting them circles now. I mean, where you go? I mean, that's that. Well, Alexander was ahead of his time. We just didn't know it.
Yeah, we're ahead of the curve on something
Yes,
here.
sir. Yes,
Well,
sir.
that's a good thing. Let me see. There were a couple of other ones. Questions I hear. I'm gonna read this one. This was coming from one person. Say, why has there been an ongoing tax that comes up for renewal every 10 years? Has there not been time to figure out how to fund this in a different way? Why not just make it a part of the general fund since it is permanent?
It's not permanent. It comes up for renewal every 10 years, and that's the purpose of that. So it's not a permanent tax. So that people, because it gives the public the comfort of knowing that if something goes wrong at Renaissance, it's not being ran the way it's supposed to be, or there's issues, they can come back in after the 10 years and vote it down and stop that. So that's one of the reasons. But the fact of the matter is there's not a perfect way to tax anyone. Some people are going to pay, some are not. We see that all the time in the legislature.
Right.
That's what we tried to work on a lot this past session. It's not perfect. We're not trying to say that it is, but it's the best system that we've come up with to finance it. And quite frankly, other systems across the state do the same thing we're doing because it is the best way to fund a facility like this.
Well, I tell you what, guys, just given the idea of what's happening, what we report over here at UrbanCast, just following along with what we're doing. It looked like at a time like this, we'd be trying to make sure that we have the appropriate facilities in place to house the juvenile offenders and then those that just don't have anywhere else to go. That's a real issue. And we know that even over in that foster care structure over there, it's hard, especially when you get the teenagers to place those teenagers. Yeah. And the Renaissance Home is actually stepping up and having the ability to do that. That's a good thing. And the idea of knowing that we won't have those resources here available to us if this tax doesn't pass, I'm just sitting here thinking that, crime is all over our region here, specifically here in Alexandria, and we need to have all of the tools at our disposal to actually help moving our community forward. In other words.
Well, and we want folks to know, Jack, that like I say, this once again, it's just a renewal. It's nothing's going to change. It's what it's been like. What we did was go out and get some funds, some one-time funds to help update this center to make it even better. So we some things that needed to be done. The governor's on board. Like you said, we were kind of ahead of the time right here. So we were ready to move. He's ready to move, and it goes along with the concept that he was wanting to do and he's been talking about. So
let me give you an example of one of the things that we've been trying to do at Renaissance for a long time that we think we're on the verge of being able to do, and that's to have Zoom capabilities.
Yes.
So on some of these hearings that are just hearings more or less to check on the child, that sort of thing, we won't have to transport that child to the courts. We can do that with the courts via Zoom. Now, when it comes time for trials and things like that, of course, we won't do that. We'll do them like we normally do. But on many hearings, on just show cause hearings and things like that, so the court makes sure that the child's been treated right and everything's supposed to be done is done, we can do those electronically, and that would help a lot.
That is for both for public safety, for the safety of the child. Child won't have to be around, potentially be around adult prisoners in the courtroom for all various different reasons.
Yes.
For economy, for judicial economy, that's a wonderful thing, as Senator Luneau pointed out.
yeah, well,
The child can stay at the facility, continue on with his schoolwork, everything.
well, it'll bring that facility up into the 21st
Absolutely.
century. What it's going to do. With the governor's help, we're going to get it where it needs to be.
Well, gentlemen, we've talked about a good bit of stuff here. Did we not cover something that you guys think we need to cover before we get?
No, thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. Just please, if you can, folks, if you're listening, get out and vote. It's this Saturday. It's a renewal. It's not an increase. We need to hang on to Renaissance. It is a good place. It does good, and we need to keep it.
All right, that sounds like a winner. Senator Luneau, I'm gonna put you on the spot over here right now. But it's a good thing.
I need to move over, Jack.
No, I want to get the senator back. I'm gonna try to get a commitment. I need to get him back. We need to talk about. There's been some changes over in, I guess you would say, in motor vehicles where it was extremely hard for drivers to get their credentials back in place. But there are some changes that happened in the legislature this year that it gave the Department of Motor Vehicles some leeway to help people, get those driver's license back. And I want to get you on one day to come talk about that, if you don't mind.
I'll be happy to do that. I tried to, when I was a Governor Edwards' floor leader for 8 years, we tried to pass that same type of legislation and couldn't get it passed. So I'm very excited that we've got it passed now, and I'll be happy to come on and we can talk about it.
And yeah, man, I really want to talk because I think it's something. We did some studies, and again, I apologize that I'm cornering the senator on this. I'm apologizing ahead of time.
It's fine. It's fine.
But we did some studies out here, and it was showing, where folk like the DA here, he over here working with folk to get to get rid of things that are kind of frivolous and all that kind of good stuff. But the hang up was over here with the state. Ain't
Jack,
that right?
Jack, that's a very important issue to the sheriff and I both, because we run into that issue every day when we're trying to help people.
All right.
And so that is a tremendously important issue to us as well.
Yeah, I tell you what, Senator Luneau, I'm gonna definitely hold you to that and try to get you back on. And if you could,
absolutely, Jack, you're my friend. I'd love to come back on.
All right, man, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Not a problem. Let me go ahead and close us out here. Hey guys, out there, we've discussed some really important stuff out here today. The Renaissance Home for Youth is critical role in tackling some of the community's most pressing, challenging crime, poverty needs for youth rehabilitation, and the whole gamut. As we consider the property tax renewal, it is essential to remember that this is about more than just a dollar and a cent. It's about investing in the safety and the future of Alexandria and Rapides Parish and the whole region as a whole. While concerns about the fairness and the impact on property owners and renters are valid, the potential cost of incarceration, both financially and socially, is much greater. I want to thank you, Senator Luneau, DA Phillip Terrell, and Sheriff Wood for shedding the light on this important issue. Let's continue this conversation, remain informed, and make choices that will lead to a brighter, safer future for everyone in St. Louis.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you,
Thank
Jack.
you, guys. Y'all have a good one.
God bless.
If you guys can hang in there, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream.
Yes, sir.